Welcome to Season 3 of Pod Practice with Team USA player Quinn Finer, Team USA Grandmaster player Mikey Lunn, and myself, Alex Atkins. You can now find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We want to keep growing the Pod Practice community, so reach out to us with your thoughts on IG and YouTube at podpractice_pod, or email us at show@podpracticepod.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode. All right, all you Be Ultimate maniacs. For the full month of November, Be Ultimate is offering free shipping to North America in their shop. Browse club replicas, pro replicas, Be Originals, and much more. Use promo code FREESHIPNOV. That's FRESHIPNOV at checkout.
Huh. Is it only one E?
I don't know. Hey, we'll get back to you on that. But I feel like it's two because it's free ship November, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll post it we'll post the code below. Today we welcome Nick Stuart, known as one of the best big men of all time. Nick is a college, club, and world champion. Nick's dad also played Ultimate, so he's been around the game his entire life. His career started in high school, I believe, playing with Vicious Cycle and Ronin. Later, he went on to play with Carleton CUT, Sub-Zero, Revolver, and Sockeye, and many world's teams. Too many to list. Nick, we were reading your article on Ulti-World, or one of your articles on Ulti-World.
You mean me. I was reading.
No, I think I'm just a faster reader than you. Kids did not think that.
Maybe I just think about it more critically. Maybe you're just skimming.
Anyway, specifically on your article about preparing for national team tryouts, and I love this bullet point that said, "Throw as few forehands as possible." How is your forehand looking today?
About the same, I would say. Well, I think my teammates would say about the same.
So you don't need a great flick to make a national team. So
stop working on it.
No, you just have to be 6'4", 220-ish, and fast. Yeah,
fast as shit.
Yeah.
You're only 6'4"?
Yeah. I'm actually a short 6'4". I'm like 6'3" and 3/4 or whatever.
Me too.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But I like to round up.
Playing with you on the field, it's like you're 6'9" playing on the field with you. It's fucking crazy. Maybe I'm just small. I don't know.
You're small.
I'm small.
Nick, I'm curious because my dad also played Ultimate. I'm curious, like, how that has affected your relationship with the sport, like growing up, and then like how it's changed, but like basically the impact it had, like just growing up around the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it highlighted or heightened some of those feelings of like, why have I been doing this for so long? Like, what does this mean to me? Do I care a lot? Do I not care a lot? Is it cool to care a lot? Is it cool to not care a lot? Like that kind of thought process in my journey. My first club season, men's open club season was 2007 with Vicious Cycle, but I played 2 years of mixed club before that on sectionals, regionals level team with my dad, and then I played in my first league when I was 11 in Gainesville, Florida. So like organized Ultimate, not pickup, was started around 11 years old for me, and I had played pickup before that as well. So it's been a long time playing, and my dad was great. Like playing with him was great. It was a great way to connect. He was my coach in every sport, basketball, baseball, like etc. So actually being able to like play with him and be not necessarily a peer, but have that experience was a very privileged experience and super wonderful for me and for him. And then as I grew up, like his influence from a play spirit perspective was always there. It was always like a respect your opponents kind of deal, especially growing up and playing in the Southeast. That was like a really great sort of beacon for me. And Whether I lived up to that at all times growing up is debatable, but it's definitely something that I think about a lot now, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was it like going from, so you grew up, started playing a lot in Florida, and then when you went off to college in Minnesota, like what was it like in the different scenes? What kind of differences were highlighted for you?
I mean, the Florida teams that I grew up playing with around, so I was a part of a group of people who would go and scrimmage the UF team in like 2006, 2007, 2008. So like Tim Garrett, Kurt Gibson, Brody Smith, Cole Sullivan years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, blatant teaching how to foul on the mark, when to foul on the mark, how to use the rules advantageously, etc. Like watching them teach that to rookies, watching them talk about that was. So Quinn, you're like looking surprised, and I have other fun anecdotes from this time of Ultimate that will, I think, somewhat highlight that this wasn't just a Florida problem. But essentially, I went to, so the first time I ever played Youth Ultimate with people my own age was 2008 Junior Worlds Tryouts. The only person I knew at the tryouts was Dylan Tennell, who is helping run the tryouts, and I knew him because I played against him when he was on chain at regionals and stuff. But it was just there was none of that. There was you weren't teaching it. There was some teaching of physicality, defensive physicality, etc. But it was definitely very different. And then playing on CUT was also very different. There's a huge Paidan, huge Amherst influences there. So a lot of hard work, put your head down and work kind of stuff, and a lot less of the how do we use these rules? Yeah, how do we use this to our advantage? Yeah.
What were some of the other anecdotes? I was excited to hear about them.
Yeah, I think it's sort of interesting. I think about this a lot when you watch those old 2006 to 2009 national highlight videos. You can just see the blatant physicality, bumping on the mark in the first 1 to 2. That was all just totally normal. And I was watching the 2012 Worlds Finals, which is Canada and US. US at the time would have been Revolver.
That was the semis game, right? Wasn't it? I think.
I thought it was fine. Either way.
I actually happened to just watch it. This week.
Chase and Lou Burris, Chase Sparling Beckley and Lou Burris are commentating, and they're talking about how smart the physicality is because it slows down the offense. And those are two incredible players
Minds.
who are well respected.
Totally.
Talking about how to use physicality to your advantage in a way that you would in a basketball game.
There's a one other story about that game. Martin Cochran gets this crazy layout D, but totally takes, I can't remember which Canada player it was in this moment. And right in this moment, it would be a yellow card. It would be unsafe play.
Would it?
It is. It absolutely. And the Canadian player, I know he was a good player too, and I can't think of who it was. Takes a moment. He calls a foul. He takes a moment and is foul retracted. So even the players who were being fouled had a different mindset of the physicality of the game.
Yeah. Well, someone just told me an anecdote from, so this is, third-hand information or whatever, about when there's a deep ball that's hanging up, you go in hot, because if you hit the player who's also trying to get it, they're going to think about getting into that, going for that disc hard. Give it a second thought.
Hell yeah.
And the reason that they grew up thinking that is because their coach would tell them that. And the player is an Amherst player. So the coach was Tina Booth, who, I don't have this, keep it very much in mind. I don't have this clip. It exists somewhere of her talking with another coach about doing this, but it's these are the best coaches of all time who in this era, at this time, this was sort of acceptable.
Right.
I'm glad that it's changed in a lot of ways, but I think that people don't realize how prevalent and acceptable it was at that time.
It's so interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting. God damn it. How the whole philosophy of the game could be, just how it can change.
It almost feels like it's come full circle with the AUDL at this point, or the UFA at this point, though. Like, because I feel like a lot of that stuff is now happening in the UFA and is coached in the UFA as well.
It certainly is coached.
Do you think that's a product of it being the right, like, it being smart, or the refs are bad?
Both.
Or both, yeah.
Both. It's just like the culture too, like, because I don't even know if I necessarily, like, I don't know. I'm not of the opinion that you should be trying to hurt people at all, but I am also not of the opinion that there's never going to be any contact, like, especially when you're talking about the disc floating in the air and like going in. Like, that's such an interesting one, because if you're standing there and, you know, we've all seen the sick play, like the person who's running into that pile and can jump from, like, you know, a nice approach jump, like, it just gets up huge, and those plays are sick. And I mean, I think the best situation is you do it and you're able to avoid just like completely wrecking people. So I really do think that is the answer, but there's going to be some level of contact, especially when like two players are meeting at one point to get a disc. So I don't know. I guess it's always just like a balance. And I guess each situation is, you just take the context from it.
Yeah, I think that there are maybe two things that stick out in my mind of like current culture that, again, not necessarily saying they are good or bad. One is the idea of dangerous play, and how I do think there's a line, and also like sports are dangerous. So how do you do that fairly? I think that is an interesting conversation and question that is really hard to do. And the other one, which is now escaping me, so I just completely forgot what the other one was.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I agree with both thoughts. Like, it's the thing that pisses me off the most is when it's coached and when it's done purposefully.
Right.
Like,
well, that's just heinous. Yeah.
But that's what we were just talking about, right?
Yeah,
like that's
ridiculous.
What happened back in the day, and that's what's happening in the UFA now. Like that drives me.
I feel like I'm talking
crazy,
to my dad.
dude.
And,
my dad's like, playing UNC fucking W back in like 1984, dude. They were just fouling you on the. I'm like, okay.
I mean,
calm down.
In my college years, UNCW was blatantly doing this kind of stuff. They got into a whole fight with Pitt about it at nationals.
Yeah,
it's only until relatively recently that they've changed their ways in North Carolina. Overall, I would say.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys pose a scenario, and is this type of fouling? What do you think about this specific type of fouling? So in like basketball, you know, there's like, I think there's a notion of like a good foul, not necessarily to hurt or anything, but if they have, like, just to prevent 100%. An easy layup or something. And like, what if Kins has like a wide open huck to Quinn or something? Like, what do you think about just me hugging Kins? Like, not necessarily not hacking, but just I'm going to prevent this situation.
Yeah, totally.
It's terrible. It's horrible.
It's horrible, but I do think realistically, if you want to prevent it, you have to make it so that you can't just be like, it's horrible, so let's never do it. Like, I think realistically, and that's why, like, I think in some ways in the UFA, maybe they could get better at it, is like, it can't just be a common foul. Like, if I'm about to throw a huck and you just blatantly hug me, like, the punishment has to be more severe. And so maybe if it's like the yellow card thing where, okay, you get one opportunity, and if you do it again, you're out of the game or whatever, like something like that. Because I think the incentives have to be correct. Otherwise, like, yeah, why, if you're trying to compete and win, why wouldn't you just like? I
agree, but also, like, in the rules it states you're not supposed to cheat on purpose. Like,
yeah,
is it that hard for adults to
But cheating
abide
is
by
just
that.
no, but cheating it's subjective. Like that's the thing. Like I just think a lot of that shit is like subjective. Like we're saying, if it's a good foul, like in some circles, like
I
that's
think-
it's
but
not
I
cheating.
think
It's just
but
a
this
smart thing
cheating
to
is-
do.
Frisbee has a different culture than that. Like,
I don't actually think that cheating is subjective. That is cheating.
I don't either. Yeah, it's like if you are purposefully
And the
fouling
way that
someone.
anyway, we can move on. But the way I think the way that it's
Well, I have
worded
a couple
and-
points.
Yeah,
First
Okay,
of
go
all,
ahead.
purposely fouling in the NBA isn't cheating.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So I don't see that as cheating in Ultimate.
Sure.
The biggest differences that I see are one, stopping 1 out of 15 points is way different than 2 out of 100.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. So at that point, it's more valuable to do it in Ultimate than it is to do it in basketball from a
Yeah.
defensive perspective. You're also any foul in you have a limit on any foul in the NBA, and you don't have a limit on any foul in Frisbee.
Right. And
Right.
these are the things I think have to be changed. Because if you look at soccer, like if they're on a breakaway and they're gonna like they have a one-on-one with the keeper, if you're the last person back and you just like push them over, you're gonna get sent out of the game, red card. And so yeah, you saved the goal, but you also are down a person now, and they also have like a penalty kick. So like I just think to realistically mitigate that kind of stuff, you have to put it into the rules. Otherwise, like if in a competitive situation where we're trying to win, like sure, you can say like just be like the most honest person you can, but like there's a lot of just like gray area to that.
And it's also interesting to me that we usually talk about this from a marking throwing perspective and not a receiving perspective. Like there's no difference in me hugging the receiver to stop them from jumping and trying to catch a Frisbee, right? They would get the Frisbee on the goal line and I would get a second chance at getting a D than them catching it. And so like I don't see any different, like it's not, I'm not saying I would do it or I would condone it or I would teach young players to do it either. I just think it's a same situation where you like get that second chance to get the D.
It's definitely the only shot in hell I have of stopping any of the three of you from catching that goal.
No, and that's what I'm saying is like I don't do those things, but I also don't think that it's really realistic to just be like, okay, everyone. I don't know.
I definitely don't
tough.
think that it's something that we should introduce to Frisbee, but I love the gamesmanship of like a Chris Paul or something, you know, thinking about how. Yeah, there are things that we would call gamesmanship in other sports that are just don't fit in Ultimate.
Yeah, maybe because it's not like that. There's not as much at stake potentially. I don't know.
If you want the conversations around if it was a foul or not to get way, way, way worse, introduce limits on the amount of fouls you can have in a game.
And I actually don't hate that. Like, I think they should do that kind of stuff in the UFA. Otherwise, it's really not that bad to just keep fouling. But the thing that what I do think about, and it's kind of what I like about football, because when you take out a lot of things of like what is a foul, except like holding, because you see it a lot, but like when you just let it be like more of a physical contest, it is a little bit more pure, I think, because sometimes what's difficult about watching basketball is like, again, like what a foul is on a layup and on like, especially like when people are attacking the rim, is so gray and blurred, and it's really hard to tell. And then you get a lot of these games where the referees have such a big impact because like whatever, and like yes, you just want them to be consistent, but at the same time there is a part of just letting like the players play and be physical that I find like very beautiful about like a game. Like I really like that about the NFL.
So you're arguing for observers over refs?
No, I'm arguing for physicality, like for allowing more physical play, because I think that takes out. It's like, are you allowed to push me this way, but not this way, like whatever? Or if we're just both allowed to kind of like push each other as we're going for the disc, then fuck it. Then there's no like foul.
Okay.
How do we get here? Okay, Kin's
How did we get here?
Let's loop it back, shall we?
Like basically, let's mesh it with like rugby. You know, let's just
I got my rugby pants on today. I got the anyway.
I also think it appeals to me more as like a like obviously if you're like
Until you have to mark up with Nick, then it's like
that's what I'm saying. Like
appeal anymore.
when you see like in football, like it's like a huge person sport, but it just I hate how basketball it can get so ticky tacky, and you're like that was a foul, this is a foul, blah, 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 blah. And I don't want like ultimate to become that where it's like this and that and this and that. You're trying to figure out each one. It's like at a certain point, I think you have to allow for some physicality and let it kind of sort itself out. That's my point.
Yeah. Actually, that does remind me. I had at Masters Worlds, Grandmasters Worlds, I had a block against Australia, and then afterwards there was contact.
Dirty player.
It was not even like the contact that.
It's the dirty ones who don't want this kind of stuff. It's
just like little shoulder brush, and I had to accept the foul because by the whiff diff rules, I could not achieve that block. I could not get that block without
without brushing shoulders.
Yeah.
Asshole.
Maybe we'll try to.
I've heard multiple observers say in their explanation of players on stream that the defender got the disc first, which was like the thing that was used for years to justify dangerous play or huge collisions afterwards. And it is somewhat shocking to me that has what I believe is probably the messaging that the observers are being told to give players.
Right.
It just depends on the situation. I do think like a defender, if for anyone, I do think I think anyone has the responsibility to make a play without blowing someone up. Like if you're not taking into regard like another human's like physical well-being, like I just think that's fucked. But I do think we get into like these patterns where, okay, now anytime there's like a long up line and a defender is coming from poaching downfield, that like automatically you can't make this play because it's going to be a dangerous play. And that's where we don't want to go like too far over the balance of like, you just have to let, this person who's not looking where they're going, like run downfield. Like I think the defender has an opportunity to make a play on that disc, but they have to be able to do it in a safe way, or vice versa. If it's the offense going for it, like just make it in a safe play.
Well, maybe I'll leave you all with some homework and you can talk about it next episode, which will make me listen to the next episode. So you'll get another view.
Thank you.
Go watch the 2016 Ironside Revolver final and look at Jay Clark's D on Beau as Beau comes under, and tell me or tell your listeners or whomever if the defender was if Beau is the defender, would you change your mind about what you thought of the play?
And is Jay smaller? Is what you're saying?
Or no, I'm saying Jay makes a great block which causes a relatively big collision between Beau and Jay.
Oh, right.
Jay's on defense. And so the question is, if Beau is on defense, would you feel differently about it? And we don't have to talk about it right now, but.
And is this going to be graded?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll send it to Nick for grade.
And that's double spaced.
Yeah, 12-point Times New Roman font,
okay.
2 pages, double spaced.
Okay, I don't want to throw off my grade here. This is like a big opportunity.
1 inch margin.
I mean, this does tie in pretty well. This exactly is the spirit of the game discussion, and we had that topic written down. Maybe I try to tie this into. Nick, maybe we'll start with you and your journey with Spirit of the Game, and not only as like on the field, but well, maybe it's on the field. Can you just talk about your journey as like a teammate, opponent, emotions, like how your emotions affect your view of Spirit, and then when you're able to step back and reflect how you feel about it. I don't know why Kins is laughing so much.
It's a loaded question.
Yeah, this is a big question.
It's just a big one.
Yeah, I think the journey, at least for me, is kind of always happening, and I don't know if that was always the case. I sort of just played, didn't really think too much about it, and was like, I'm not cheating blatantly. I'm not using the rules to my advantage, and that means I'm being spirited. And I think that there's like the players have a responsibility to both adjust what they think of spirit of the game and also recognize that somebody else, their opponent, might have a different view. And I think if everybody did that, right, like both held their own view and then adjusted for other people's views at the same time, that you would like kind of everybody would be able to meet better together. And I think what frustrates me a little bit sometimes is when people like tell me what spirit of the game is or tell me that I'm unspirited because of something. And I always try to take that and like adjust myself because of those things and like internalize that and change. And at the same time, I think I try to expect that other people will also change based on what my view of spirit of the game is too. And that's changed over the years. I think that there's a lot of, I think I sort of this interesting like push and pull between spirit and sportsmanship. And the idea that like if you smack talk somebody or say something from the sideline or like express your opinion angrily or like show frustration or emotion, that you are unspirited. I don't love that definition of spirit, because I think that there should be space in sports, especially men's sports, to show frustration, to show anger, to show whatever. And I think it is important for the people who don't like that to express that they don't like it, and for the people who do express that to try not to express it in a bad way. And at the same time, I think the people who don't like it can make space for the people where it is really healthy and really beneficial to them to be able to express those emotions.
Do you like that?
It seemed long-winded, but
no, that was great. Do you like that we all have our own definitions of spirit, or would you prefer if USA Ultimate just defined it for us?
I mean, right off the bat, I would prefer if USA Ultimate did nothing in that sense. Yeah, I think, I mean, the way that would show up would be observers telling players what is or isn't spirited. And I think that happens generally too much. A great example is 2018, maybe semis against Ring, maybe 17. I think it was 18 though. Antoine and Jack Williams are getting really physical and not calling fouls, and it's equal physicality. And the observer gives Antoine a card, and Jack's like, "Why are you doing this? Like, we have agreed together, without saying it, that this is an okay level of physicality for us, and you are changing what we are saying is spirited play." And so I strongly dislike that.
Yeah.
But I also strongly dislike them doing that and one of them potentially saying, "I think this is too physical," and the other person being like, "You're soft." Right? Like, I also dislike that. So I think that there's a little bit of push and pull there. And this is on field. Off field stuff, I think, is somewhat different, of like someone chirping from the sideline or kids talking smack after scoring a goal or like something along those lines. Like, the idea that another team during a game would be like, "Don't talk to us," which I think is what you all were talking about last time, is like, we don't like it when Kins says something to us. It's like, sorry, I don't know. Like, I think it's okay to go up to them afterwards and be like, "Hey, we think you're kind of an asshole because you said this to us during a game." And it's another thing to say, "Don't do that, or you're not a spirited person." Like, I just don't agree with that line of reasoning, I think, in sports.
How do you think reputation of, like, this could be taken two ways, like reputation of a community or reputation of a player affects like those conversations and how that kind of manifests? Because, like, for example, like, I think Kins is a really good example of a player that is treated too harshly because of his reputation. And I think for like a community or like the US or North American Frisbee in general, other countries view it as like a very physical style of play. For example, we were playing, I think this was at US Open, we were playing the Dingoes, and I got like fouled pretty hard on a deep shot. And the guys, it was hilarious. Like, funny dude. I don't have any like hard feelings with this guy, but he like fouled me pretty hard. And then after, his justification was, well, I thought you guys liked physical play. And that's what he said. Whereas like he just like two-hand shoved me when I'm going up for a disc and like took my feet out from under me. So I'm just curious, like, what you think reputation does to those situations.
It makes people assume something based on their reputation. I don't know. I don't think that's like limited to that situation, right? If you have a reputation for being a nice person, then people are going to give you the benefit of the doubt more, even if you do something shitty. So I think it goes in every direction, and that's just kind of like human psychology in a lot of ways. I thought you liked physical play doesn't mean that you didn't foul. Like, it means I don't think you're less spirited because you're physical, but it's still a foul, right? Like that I think is what happens there. I think it's hard.
The international players have no grounds to stand on anymore since their one of their delegates came to nationals and got like the most yellow cards ever we've ever seen. Like, come on, you could all.
Are you talking about Dan?
Yeah.
So one of my questions here for my little pod practice notes is, how do you feel about that first team pick, and do you think that spirit of the game and ejections should play a role in that conversation about good player or not good player or whatever?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I guess it just depends on what your qualifications are in my qualifications. Probably not taking it into account there. Like, I guess, I don't know. I didn't watch the game, but if someone's playing really well and, oh God, now I think about the extremes. So I think I'd have to watch the games and see like what his plays were that got him kicked out.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I will say it was not on my mind to take Spirit into consideration in that regard. It's definitely something that I've thought about for the Callahan. I haven't voted for the Callahan maybe since I was in college. I don't even know if I'm allowed to.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I imagine not, right? Yeah. But I also think about it, like, I've wrestled with this topic in a lot of different ways. Coaching Atkins, coaching other players who have much different personalities than mine, and trying to decide, like, how do I account for that in the evaluation process? You know, like we do take it into, like, are you a good teammate? We tell people at tryouts, like, we are looking for good teammates, and if you aren't able to do that, that will be a knock against you. And it's always that's another gray area. Like, if you're really fucking good, a lot of times we do overlook that to an extent.
Yeah. I think it probably should play a little bit of a factor into how those first team, second teams. I like to preface too. I think I have a pretty big issue with how those like first and second teams are selected anyway. Like, I never think they're that good. Like, I don't know. And that's not to say like Dan like shouldn't.
No info,
like Dan should, like, he's a great player. Like, he should have been first team. He should have been second team. Like definitely. But I do think it should play a factor in there. Like, that's the people you want, like, at the forefront of the biggest media outlet for Frisbee. Like, I think that should play a factor into it. But it's funny you said that, Nick, because Devin, my wife, the first thing that she said when she saw him on there, she's way more tapped into like the Ultiworld stuff than I am. So I get all my Ultiworld when she sends it to me.
Ultiworld Digest.
And she was livid that he was on the first team. She was so angry. She's like, this fucking guy is like getting all these fouls, these yellow cards. And she's like, he didn't even play the regular season that much. Like, and she was livid about it. So I thought it was really funny that she brought that up, but yeah.
No, that is interesting. And I mean, I guess it does, like, if I was picking the teams, I mean, whether or not it should, it definitely would be a consideration of mine. Like, if there was just someone who was playing super dirty like that, it would definitely be like, maybe
And
if you're really good, but you're getting like kicked out of all these games and stuff, it would probably
It's
be
even-
harder for
Really
me to
that
put
good.
you on the list.
yeah, it's even funnier that they used him being out half of a game as a
Right,
as
justification,
justification that he was like first team. They're like, well, he only played 5.5 games because he was suspended for the first half, and they were like, so it's even more impressive that he did this. It's like, wait. Why are we justifying him getting suspended for something he did as a reason to
funny.
put him somewhere? But yeah,
That's funny. What do you think,
yeah.
Nick?
yeah.
Yeah, I think it should be in there, especially from not especially, at a minimum from this, like, he only played 5.5 games and he was so good, still so good. The flip side of that is that he missed half a game or plus, right? And like,
And they got smoked
an important
in that
game.
first half. Yeah, an important game, and they got fucking torched in that first half.
Yeah, and then so you have this player who is very good, and then but also is at a high risk to 100% risk, because you know that they got kicked out, of imploding the team
That's a
emotionally,
really good point.
like from a playing perspective. So just right there, I'm like, oh, this dude isn't going to isn't reliable as a player, because they're gonna, at any time they could get kicked out, or have a higher likelihood of getting kicked out. So I think that that's like a really interesting point from a Spirit perspective. Yeah, I think it should be in there, especially because it's such a big part of the game. And this idea of like good teammate, bad teammate is also interesting, and I'm willing to unpack as well, of like whose definition of what a good teammate or a bad teammate is. But yeah, I do think it should be in factor. I was surprised he was on there, and I agree with you, Quinn. I don't love those selections. Often baffle me.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I think it's just hard too, because unless you're,
I was surprised I was on there, dude. We fucking got smoked in pre-quarters. Like, why are we putting someone from a team that literally did jack shit on there?
I not that I didn't think you played really well. I was surprised that one of our players made it too.
Well,
just because
exactly.
we didn't do
I
shit.
could have had the best tournament of my life, and I still shouldn't have been on there. Like, I didn't play bad. I played well, but like, I shouldn't.
No,
I
I
shouldn't
don't
be on
even
there.
think that's true. I just think what's hard about it is that unless they're watching every game, like we've talked about with the stats, like the
It's an all
information is so
tournament line.
limited. Well, not even just that. It's just that the information is so limited for you to make this decision that you're really just going off of who your preconceived like good players are, and then like did they score like enough goals? Yeah, the reputation, like they've been on a world's team.
Yeah.
Their team did well. Like, because we don't, like, if we had the amount of stats that they have in the highest levels of sports, then you could make really informed decisions like, oh, look how efficient this player, because I'm sure there's some player on some team that did okay, like got lost in quarters, that maybe had like an incredible tournament, like efficiency wise, or they did something that like had not been done, or defensively, whatever. But we don't know, because all we can see from their stat line is goals, assists, and turnovers. So,
And they're not even accurate because they're done by random
11-year-old
volunteers.
Caleb.
Thank you,
Caleb, we
volunteers.
love you,
Like-
but I know damn well you don't have the attention span to watch all 25 points of this ultimate game.
Yeah, like, that's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah, that is funny. Nick, why don't you unpack your good teammate, bad teammate take for us? Since it was on your mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just highly subjective what like a good teammate or a bad teammate is, and I think this very much plays into this conversation that that spurred me to reach out to talk, because I really enjoyed listening to you and Mikey. Do you have a preference? I don't know.
The gun.
No.
I call it both.
Yeah. Whatever you feel good with in the moment is.
I feel
I'm
like
happy with.
Just flow with it.
Your conversation around like how your actions affect your teammates. And that's like kind of what got me thinking about this, largely because throughout my career, I've been just in my life, I like wear my emotions on my sleeve. I am a fiery player who's not afraid to tell you when you do something wrong. And I think I try really hard to also tell you when you do something right, especially the little things. I think like telling people who have cleared out of the way that caused something else to happen that was really good. Like I think that praise is underutilized in Ultimate. But I think it's a really interesting conversation because I feel like my whole career I've been told to do less of that, be less fiery, be less negative, be less whatever.
Yourself.
Yeah, and that's I think that there is value in that, and I think I can always work to internalize that and to receive feedback and make changes based on that feedback. And I think that there's room for a team to make changes based on a single player as well. So there are people who are like, oh, I really don't receive feedback in that way, right? So like I'll just shut down if you say anything with an angry tone to me, and it's like okay, I understand that, and also I shut down when you tell me that I'm being too negative a little bit, right? So it's like, it's this push pull. And my question here that I have, right, in my pod practice notes that I have here is like, what responsibility, if any, does a teammate bear for their reactions to a situation?
I love this question, and it's actually something I think about a lot. And obviously, I'll be curious to hear what you guys think. Actually, while you were talking, I also remembered we've had Ari Nelson on a couple times, who's a local Colorado player, and they have had mental health struggles, and their team, they currently play for Trash, which is a mixed team in Colorado, also the Alpenglow. And the Trash does a really good job of developing and defining mechanisms to give feedback to Ari when they need it, and they just define what is the communication going to look like and what is the structure around it. And I am sort of disappointed in myself remembering this, because I recall while we were having that conversation, it was actually like in the other corner of my office, and in that moment, I was like, we do that so well in Bravo. We define things really well. We just develop these communication channels, and we absolutely did not do that in 2024. There were a lot of times when I'd have conversations with players or the other coaches, and we'd be like, this is a conversation that we should have. And then it just never happened. Like we never followed up on things we knew needed to get done. And when I've had many conversations with a lot of players, not just with Atkins, but with their interactions with each other, and I think what frustrates me the most is when it's always talking about like, I don't like the way that person talks to me. I don't like the way they express themselves. And I always want to ask them, like, have you thought about, like, you also have some control in this. Like you can decide how you receive that. Like you know that person, you have some sense of what they're going through. If you don't know that person very well, have you considered trying to take the time to get to know them a little bit better, and take some ownership of, like, it's not just about that person changing to fit you, but like, how can you help them? Like, how can you support them as a teammate? So those are my overall thoughts and what you made me think of, but I don't really have a question out of it.
Well, I definitely agree with that. And I think that I want to be clear that I think it's a two-way street. Like the person who is being frustrated or expressing themselves in a way that someone else doesn't like, etc., bears the responsibility of changing their behavior as well. And I think that I just think that you can also work to change your behavior around receiving feedback. And I think that, right, this is a spectrum, and I think that there is a line that you can cross where, as the person who is providing feedback, you are the only one who needs to change. Like you've just done it in a way that's too toxic, to whatever. And I think that when that happens, the people who are responding appropriately. So this is a narrow set of a narrower set of interactions that I think sometimes you can miss opportunities to strengthen relationships from that. And I'll give an example where at Revolver or at Sockeye practice, Mac threw me a sort of a soft under. Like I felt like I was pretty open. The throw was kind of loopy and soft, which is a whole pet peeve of mine around these Frisbee these days, is these like loopy, soft throws that people throw. And the person who was on me, was able to catch up and get a layout D because I felt like the throw didn't get to me very fast. And it was Noah Kuhlman, which, I'll give him the name drop here. Got a great D on an under. And I was super frustrated about it. And I kind of like lashed out at Mac and was like, throw it to me with some pace. And I yelled at him a little bit and I was like, you got to get it to me. And it was a moment of frustration, and part of it was my fault. Like I probably could have gone harder to it, but if he had just thrown it hard, we wouldn't have been in that situation at all. And like people on the team like reacted very strongly to me expressing that to him. And after the point, I went up to him immediately, calm, and I was like, here's why I did this. Like I could have expressed it better to you. And he was like, I totally understand. Like we're good. Let's whatever. And I feel like it strengthened my relationship with Mac because I was able to express the frustration. He received that frustration and didn't think, less of me or think I was a horrible person or whatever. Took the feedback, was able to receive it. Then we talked about it afterwards, and then we moved on from it. And so I think you miss those opportunities when you receive feedback that you don't like or in a way that you don't like, and you just immediately shut down from that. And I think there's a lot of ways that people can work to strengthen that. There's a lot of ways coaches can help facilitate that kind of interaction. But I do think in my experience, people are always telling me to change my behavior without any acknowledgement of the other side as well,
right.
which has been really hard as an adult, as a young adult man, we're sort of told throughout our life and right now of like, both like don't express anger, but also men should be able to express their emotions and cry and love and hug and all this stuff, but don't be angry. That's been a really hard thing that I've been dealing with my entire life and still sort of wrestle with in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier as well. I think you said, especially in men's sports, with regards to I think it was, I guess, just expressing emotion. And I gather it's what is the difference? Can you explain the difference then of why maybe you say, especially in men's sports versus women's sports?
Sorry, I don't. Well, I think that the general discourse around the two is a different conversation comparing the two. What I meant was the difference between everyday life and sport, not men's sport and women's sport. I think that's what I meant in my head. But yeah, the difference between men's and women's sport and showing emotion is a whole nother. That to me feels like a different conversation, which we can get into if we want. But I don't have a lot of experience playing in women's sports, so it's hard for me to.
Yeah, I don't know if I could speak intelligently on it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad we brought Nick on because I like having someone of this thought on the on the line because No, it is cool. And I just like, I like a lot of what you're saying. Like, it's never about like one side. And this is like every conversation that I've ever had in my whole life. It's like, it's really just this yin and yang of like each person that is different is trying to bring that best self, and to focus solely on like one of those sides is just never going to lead you to the right place. So whether you're focusing on the person giving, or it does tend to usually be like us, I feel like, giving the feedback, unless we're the ones getting feedback on our emotions. Like the most feedback I get is on that like mental side of it. But yeah,
we can talk another time if you want feedback on your play. I'm happy to provide that.
Well, when you were first talking, it's actually and you were talking about how you're like expressive and stuff. It brought up this memory of at tryouts, at the World's Tryouts. We were like playing on like the mixed field, and I think I just like wanted someone to like throw me a deep huck. And I wasn't even saying it directly to you. I think I must have just said like, "Oh, they didn't throw it," and you were just like next to you with you, and you were like, "Well, you weren't open," and I was like, and it was actually so helpful because I was like, "Yeah, maybe I wasn't open. Like this is like really good." But like the thing is, people don't. I think that's so rare. Like or at least for me, there's just not a lot of people who like express that initial thought like immediately the way you did. All to say, like, I appreciated that moment. And I was also going to ask you what traits you found, the most valuable out of your teammates, like things that people have done for you. And obviously that's going to be just specifically for you, but like, specific teammates that stand out to you and what those traits were that really were helpful.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Especially specific teammates. The list we could spend a whole episode just talking about great teammates.
Yeah, you've had a bunch.
Great teammates I've had, yeah. Specific things that have helped me as a teammate. I mean, I think it's always, for me, it's always been helpful, especially in the moment where like my biases and my frustration might be top of mind. So it's like harder for me to take a step back, is when somebody tells me that I reacted in a way that wasn't good, that wasn't the person I was reacting to. Right. So like, I lash out at Mac or something like that because I'm frustrated because I'm just got layout D'd. Like there's so many things going on in my brain that cause me to act irrationally. And then it's like Bryce will come up and just be like, "Hey, like I think you should go talk to Mac about that." And that's it, right? It's just like he is confident and capable and like enough to just come up and like give me a little bit of a nudge in the right direction. That's the kind of thing that I have always really appreciated, where he's not coming up to me and being like, "Hey, the way that you reacted to Mac was like a really bad reaction. You shouldn't do that anymore. Like, don't express that emotion." He was just like, "Hey, go check in with Mac, just like help me a little bit." And it's not a commentary on me or who I am or what I just did. It's just like let's look forward and how can we create this? How can we make this into like a good situation? So that kind of thing is always something that's been really helpful to me. And I've had many teammates who are really good at that. Bryce being one of them specifically, but yeah, just like people who will come in and check in with me, they'll be like, "Hey," instead of saying, "Hey, like, don't talk to your teammate that way," they'll come up and be like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, why are you frustrated? Like, let's talk about it." And so it's clear that they're not upset at me for whatever I did, but they like care about me as well. And so I think that to me is a good distinction, and has always been super helpful throughout my play time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Because also, Mikey, real quick, when you were talking about those channels of communication, it just made me think about like, and a little bit what you're talking about, Nick, is just like how you're taking, like a lot of times those emotions are, well, they're obviously real and they can also be used in a very helpful way. But then it's about like channeling those emotions into the right areas and expressing them correctly. Like, okay, it was good that you were frustrated because you need to get on the same page with Mac about how he's throwing you unders. Like if you don't express that ever, then you're just going to start building resentment for how Mac throws you fucking unders if you never like get that out of the way. And so like, I think, we talked about this a little bit on our pod, is like, especially this year, I felt like when I started to feel like a lot of frustrations, I did a bad job of like putting them out into the right spaces effectively and like figuring out like, why am I upset? And then how do I take that kind of emotion and, you know, get it out to the right places and to the people that it needs to get to, and like start like using it to become a better team. And so I just think like what you were saying, Mikey, about having those channels that you open up, and also the people that can just come up to you and like Bryce does, and just, you know, it's not necessarily, they just are comfortable enough with you as a person to be like, hey, like, you know, you should think about this. And it's not always the yes or what you want to hear, you know, like I'm sure you maybe knew you needed to talk to Mac, but you needed that little bit of a like nudge in the back to go do it. And that kind of stuff is just so important on a healthy team.
I'm deep in thought right now.
What are you thinking about, Mikey?
Just I think of all the. I really liked what Nick said about when you phrased a missed opportunity to get closer, or however you phrased it exactly, and because we just sent our end of season feedback survey out to Bravo, and it in retrospect, I just think about like why are we not sending this out weekly, or you know, like
like if giving the opportunity for people to express that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's not because on one hand, like I wish people in general were just seeking out those opportunities to get closer proactively, and there's a million reasons why they may not feel comfortable for so many different reasons. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just feeling it hits me in the feels. Is what I'm saying.
What kind of opportunities are you talking about in that situation? And this is a loaded question because I have thoughts on this too.
Yeah, that's a good question. Both emotional, like sometimes just like how can I teach you? How can we support each other the best way? And also like feedback on what is being done at practice, what we're focusing on. Is I'll give you one more sort of tangent tidbit. Like one of the things that we also had a coaches meeting last night that we talked about is a lot of our team may do a little bit better with clear right and wrong, like clear do this, not this, instead of kind of laying it out there. Like, we're not going to tell you exactly what to do. We're going to give you a lot of situations and we're going to give you a lot of tools to work through different situations. And that feedback, knowing that, changes the way that I approach coaching. And it's probably not my strength. And I don't know. I'm something that I'm just reflecting on right now.
Mm-hmm. And you wish you had that feedback earlier.
Well, yeah, only so I could then help the team.
Yeah.
In a better way.
No, I agree. And I think that's why I like looking at it as an opportunity, because I feel like, you know, everyone needs to be on the same page and, you know, working for that same goal. And there's a lot of things whether it's how you throw an under or how someone's coaching you, that you start to like not align on. And maybe like if you aren't able to give that feedback and get that kind of stuff off your chest, like we're saying, like resentment just kind of builds up. And I think that just pulls people like farther apart, when like to be the best team, you need to be as close as you can. And it sucks because I feel like that initial like ripping the Band-Aid off of like, hey, I don't, you know, like I think you should do this and whatever, is like hard to start that conversation. But I feel like every time when that conversation is over, the majority of the time you've worked through to some common ground and now you can move on and it's off your head. And I just like viewing it as like an opportunity to kind of figure that shit out. And sometimes it just comes in the form of, you know, being expressed like on the spot. But sometimes that's the easiest way to rip the Band-Aid off, is like, because I think we've all had those talks we've need to have with people. And like the longer you wait, the harder it is to get that first word out. Like, holy shit. Whereas you just, sometimes you just gotta yell, fucking throw that under, and then go talk about it after.
Yeah.
So let me pose another question to you all. I'm curious your thoughts. Do you feel like being friends with your teammates is important?
Yes.
Friends being the key word, I guess. Like what a friendship looks like.
I will say, I don't think it's needed for winning necessarily, but it's necessary for something like a team that I would want to be a part of. And I will also say that my relationship as a coach may look a little bit different. I would say the lines get blurred a ton. Like a lot of the team is my friend, like the entire team. They're my friends, but in a little bit different way. Definitely more of a mentor or a shoulder to potentially lean on.
Mm-hmm. And I would say it's definitely a necessity to be friendly with everyone on the team. But just having been on so many teams, like you're going to connect with certain people more than others. Like, you know, and I think that's super healthy. Like that's what's awesome about being on a big team is you find, you know, a handful of people who you really connect with. And those are going to be like your best bros. But you've got to make sure that you have like healthy communication and, you know, relationships with everyone, but it's just not realistic to expect them to all be the same. Like some relationships with certain people are going to be stronger, but you should be, you know, at a baseline friend and friendly with everyone, but some are just going to be a lot stronger.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking about like my experience on a U24 USA team versus like just a regular Worlds team. And I think what you said, Ken's like being friendly with everybody. I agree to a certain extent, but sometimes I think like if you're fake friendly to a certain point, it's even like worse. Like I think you can tell when someone's like maybe just being friendly because you're in a team environment. I think that's like not helpful sometimes. Like
so what's the alternative? Like what would be more helpful than being fake? Like just ignoring them?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer for you there, but I felt that like on my U24 team, it was pretty cliquey, and it was like pretty obvious that like certain people didn't get along, but it was like forcing it to happen, and I didn't think that was helpful. Whereas like this past World Cycle, everybody was like genuinely friendly with each other. I didn't see any like clickiness. I didn't see anything like that. And I saw like you said, people had strong relationships with certain people, but it wasn't similar to the U24 experience, if you get what I'm saying.
What's your answer to the question, Nick?
I think it's way, way, way more important to be good teammates than good friends or friends even. And I think you can be a good teammate to somebody you're not friends with. And I think there's this idea that I've kind of over my long career have come to realize, and this is, you know, a binary that is actually a spectrum, but essentially there's two kinds of people, two kinds of teammates, and those are the people who build trust outside of Frisbee, and that like motivates them in Frisbee. And then there are people who build trust in Frisbee, and that motivates them outside of Frisbee, right? So there's like some of my strongest relationships that I have with people from Ultimate are because they were the people who showed up to pod every week and ran sprints with me. And like we showed up, we ran sprints, and we left. And then a year later, we were like playing board games for 10 hours together and like that kind of thing, right? And then there are the people who play board games for 10 hours together, and that motivates them to work hard at practice or something along those lines.
Yeah. I love that.
That's really interesting.
And so I think that like people generally fall into one of those two buckets. And again, I feel like it's one of those things where you have to have it's a two-way street, right? The people who build trust through social stuff will say, like, in order to build trust with the people who build trust through pod or sprints or whatever, like, you got to go to pod. And the people who build trust through pod have to go to the social stuff, right? Like, you have to have there be some kind of thing. It can't just be one group being like, well, you don't show up to the parties, so I don't want to hang out with you at practice. Or the people at pod being like, well, you don't come to pod, or you don't run track with us, so why would I trust you, right? It has to be both ways.
I feel like you just articulated something that I've been trying to define for so long, and what has actually come up a lot recently.
Yeah, it's come up on every team I've ever been on. Like, it's not a thing that's, to me, that feels like super unique, and it's similar to this, like, the people who are receiving and giving feedback, right? Like, it kind of has to be a two-way street. Both groups have to have the empathy to recognize what the other group is feeling and be able to come in some direction, right, towards that other person. It doesn't have to be in the middle exactly, but there needs to be some amount of give and take there in order for there to be really successful teams, I think.
So you've been a coach and a captain and like a leader on teams. Never captain.
Never captained.
Wow.
Oh, interesting. I just assumed, but okay, there you go. Fun fact.
That's not. I guess that's not true. I was a captain in 2010 on the junior
okay.
Worlds team. Yeah. Sorry.
Boom. So continuing on, you've been a coach and a captain on teams. How do you create? Yeah, you're shaking your head already because it's so hard. But how do you create it so that these like groups are meshing and this kind of stuff is happening in a healthy way? Or what are some things you've found helpful, at least in the pursuit of creating that?
I think, I am very much on the like, in Frisbee stuff helps me trust you, and then I'm more likely to want to do outside Frisbee stuff type of camp. So for me, it's very much trying to recognize that bias and be more in the middle and more understanding of the other camp. So that's always a struggle, always something that I'm trying to figure out. And I think a lot of it depends on the team itself specifically and like what that team cares about, right? If you're on a team and the team is okay with saying that they don't want to have a weekday night practice because they want that free, or they want to have 2 weekday practices but 1 weekend off so they can go hiking or mountain biking or whatever, that's really important to them. I think from what I've heard, that might be something that happens on Bravo. And like that would
I
that
feel
would
like
be
you're
some,
just talking right to us.
yeah. No, I know people who live in Colorado. And so like it's just like figuring out where each player fits in and then trying to encourage them to expand that piece that they fit, right? Like each player fits into a slot, and then you want to make that slot and make their comfort in that slot as big as possible. And it's going to be different for every player. But it, like, if I were to move to Colorado and play on Bravo, like not having doubles every week would be really hard. Like doubles being practices on Saturday and Sunday. Like I'd be like, well, that's just 3-4 hours we're wasting. And I think so it is, but that's the culture of your team. And I would need to change my expectations a little bit to be a good teammate on that team. So I do think that there's like a definite push-pull, as I said, and to answer your question is basically I don't have a good answer. You gotta just kind of it's team dependent and situation dependent, and you gotta like
it's art, not science.
Yeah, you can't just I will say you can't just put one solution on it and expect it to happen. It's got to be individual, group based. Yeah. Stuff.
Yeah, balancing everything is. Actually, I was about to say that's the toughest part about coaching, but I want to ask, what kind of coach are you? Are you more focused on energy, X's and O's,
yeah,
etc.?
Not X's and O's. I'm a
Vibes guy, just there for the
well,
vibes.
I would say not. Sometimes vibes guy. More of a like fundamentals guy. Like I think that teams that I have been on,
But not with four hands, right? Because
not throwing fundamentals.
he's got a good point. He's got a good point.
Not throwing fundamentals. Yeah. But I think there's a couple things that I'm good at. I think I'm good at taking somewhat complex things and making them simple. I think I'm good at just being simple, right? Like people will come up, college players especially, for some reason, maybe it's the youth ultimate, they'll come up and be like, so I was in this situation, I was on this point in the field, the disc was over here, and then the disc went this way, and my defender did this, and I'm like, what? Like I can't. This is this is a bad question. So like, encouraging.
That was a stupid question. Try again.
Encouraging. I don't say that, right? Because that would be a bad way to communicate with players. Yeah. But I think that like encouraging players to get out of that minutia, get out of that like intense detail is really important. Or at least I think has a lot of value, especially like full team value, not just like individual person value. Yeah, I don't know. You should have on some of the people I've coached and ask them what they think. I'd be curious to hear. I do think that I'm a better coach of good players than of new players. Like I don't think I'd be a good like middle school coach or even high school coach. I don't know if I was a super good college coach, but I think like coaching players who are good and want to get better. Like I think that's where I would be really good.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that. The ones who are motivated, who want to learn.
It's always easier to motivate people who are already motivated, right? That's right. I think that's a little bit of an easy answer. But I think it's like directing that motivation into the way that's going to have the best outcome. And for me, that's often go back to basics. And I think the example I always give people is that, like, if you think Steph Curry doesn't practice shooting threes because he's already good at shooting threes, like you're crazy, right? So if you're good at defense and you're like, I don't need to practice my basic defensive footwork, like that's just going to not work out. And I do think, and a lot of it's from personal experience, which isn't going to apply to everybody, but I didn't do anything crazy to make the World Games team, right? I ran 120s, I ran 1 minute intervals, and I practiced my defensive footwork, and that was basically it. So
that's the map. That's the road map.
If you're 6'4" and over 200 pounds. Yeah.
So let's go over to that a little bit. I read your articles on like the 2016 experience, and you mentioned you were hurt a lot in college, and that you were focusing on like some flexibility, mobility, like injury prevention type stuff. So can you just talk about your philosophy of training, specifically workouts for Ultimate, and how they've changed and basically like that kind of stuff?
Yeah. First of all, disclaimer, which I'm all about disclaimers. Like, I'm not a sports scientist. I'm not a accredited person, whatever.
No, let's just find out what worked for you, though.
So take that with a grain of salt. Yeah.
Therefore, don't express your thoughts, actually.
No. So
your opinions are actually no longer valid. Next question.
First and foremost, again, my opinion, don't get a trainer. Don't sign up for any of the YouTube people who are telling you what to do or not to do. Teach yourself. Yes. My recommendation to every college player that I've worked with is teach yourself how to clean.
Quinn was so in, and now he's so out.
Once you teach yourself how to clean, you don't ever need to clean again if you don't want to. But the act of organizing your body to do a clean in a safe way with a decent amount of weight will teach you how to then go out into the rest of the general fitness world and figure out what works best for you. If this is like totally new, you're not training, or I just think the act of teaching yourself how to do it is the value, not the actual exercise itself. Now, there's tons of value in cleaning, so like that's totally fine. If you can argue that, whatever. Again, I'm not a sports scientist. I can't tell you what's good or bad, or et cetera. But I do think that being able to teach yourself, super important, because then you're going to be able to go out and say like, oh, my hamstring's a little bit tight. What has changed in my training regimen that has caused that? What exercises do I need to do to help strengthen that? And you'll be able to go teach yourself again how to fix whatever ailments that you have in the future.
Would that be? By the way, I am a fan of cleans. The reason why Quinn and I may not be is only because people may do it incorrectly, and it could be unsafe. Bang for the buck. Sometimes just easier to pick up a trap bar and jump.
Yeah,
but
that was a great way to just like. I don't do cleans. I don't recommend cleans, but I think what you said, like if you can do a clean properly, every other lift you're gonna do is gonna be fucking cake, man.
The awareness of your body and the mechanics is crucial. I will say, knowing how to do a clean has not helped my snatch at all, though. That's
don't snatch. My second piece of advice: don't snatch.
Do not fucking do that shit. Yeah, that's crazy.
Second piece of advice. Third piece of advice is run and run a lot. This is what worked for me. Start super slow. So what I did, I was to get from 2016 to trying out World Game shape, which is different than regular Frisbee shape, sort of, was I was training. I was unemployed, so keep that in mind. I had tons of time. I was training like 9 times a week, and the running training was a minute on, a minute off by times 20. You should be going fast enough that at the 10th one you're exhausted, and the remaining 10 you're like just gassed. You're just like totally gassed.
You're crazy, dude. You're a psycho.
This is sick. Wait, are you on a track or just like at a field?
No, I mean just running. I like to do it when there's like slight incline, decline stuff, so that you're not just like you're on like kind of rocky roads. Your ankles are moving based on where the thing, just getting a little bit of that in there. The second thing is run 120s, which are on the 20-yard their back. So their back is 40 yards. So you run 3 of those. That's 120. Start on the every 2.5 minute. So you run a 120 every 2.5 minutes. So you run as part of your rest or whatever. Then as that gets, and you're like sprinting, right? 100% effort every time. As that gets easier and easier over time, increase to 10 reps instead of 8, then increase to 12 reps instead of 10, then start dropping time. So go from 2.5 to 2:15 to 2 to 1:45 to 1:30.
Wait, and so a 120, you're on a field or
cleats. You got to get a cleated workout in.
Yeah.
So not on a track.
No, I didn't run any track workouts in that period of time. Basically.
And wait, so for the minute on one, this is like, so you're just out on like the roads. You just like left your house, you're just going for a jog, and your minute on is like a fast jog.
Minute on's like a 400 pace, 300, 400 pace,
and then your minute off, you're walking.
Yeah.
Wow.
That last 10, which sounds brutal. Was it more physical or mental for you?
Mental.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah.
And was that sort of intentional? Like, do you just to get the grind and know like when you're tired, like you gotta keep working.
Jesus. Yeah. And the reasoning behind it for me was that I knew that I was going to be asked / told to play on a team where there were 10 men and 10 women at practice
Mm-hmm.
every time if everybody's healthy.
Right.
So you're playing more than every other point. And you're covering Beau, Jimmy, Grant, George Stubbs, Joel, Ashlyn. Like you cannot stop. So you're exhausted and you just have to keep going. You just have to. And then if you do well at that, then you're asked to do it again, but for stakes, right? Then you're playing against teams, you're trying to win a gold medal. So that was the like, how do I get prepared for that? And the idea is that if I'm not tired at practice, then I'm doing a good job.
That's sick. I love the mental training component of it because we constantly debate like what's the best way to train. And I think that what a conditioning workout like that gives you that most other things do not is just, it's a fucking bear. It sucks, but you have to do it and you have to finish it.
And putting yourself through it is fucking huge too.
Yeah, so there's two important pieces that I think this is important, right? You might think something else is important.
We're flashing the disclaimer above the screen. Don't worry.
Is that there's two kinds of workouts like that, in my opinion, right? There's the ones where the harder you work, the faster it's over. And those are your 100s, 200s, 400s. And then there is the harder you work, you just got to work to the end. And those are the minute and a half, whatever. And you want to get both of those. Right, you want to get no matter how hard I work, it's still going to take me the same amount. I'm still going to be working the same amount of time. And that's the mental of like, I just have to work hard the whole time.
Yeah.
That's sick. I was going to go out and run tomorrow and I'll have to take some of this into consideration.
And the other thing is that there's tons of value in doing that with other people, right? You are suffering together, tons of value in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if your only motivation for working out is that someone else is going to do it with you, you've got to figure out a way to be able to do it on your own as well.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, Nick, you're giving us a lot of good stuff.
I'm feeling super motivated.
I am too.
This is just like the scary motivation where I don't want to go and do too much right off the rip.
You do, though.
Okay.
He's not a professional, though.
Disclaimer. No, I know. Like the trainer, like Brian's
Nick is like
this,
that.
like for losing his mind.
I'm all about. Look, I think that there's. I'm all about all workout is better than no workout. If you're gonna be miserable working out, you're always going to associate misery with working out, right? So if you're taking time off to get motivated or to not be miserable working out or to feel good doing it is in the long run going to pay off a ton. And I do think there's also like at some point, like you have to start building volume. You have to build where you are doing it a lot and it's not miserable. And that can be really hard. Like motivation comes and goes. For me, like this training was super easy. After 2014, when 3 of my teammates died in a car crash, like motivating myself to work out was the easiest thing in my entire life. Like full stop. Mm-hmm. Everything else in my life, making dinner was more difficult than training 9 times a week, right? Like everything was super. And it's because I like set this goal for myself that I was going to make the World Games team and like figure that out. And I did it. And then when it happened, I lost tons of motivation. It was super hard for me to stay motivated. Like I stopped training as much. Then I got injured because I stopped training as much in 2018, which led to me getting injured in 2019. Then the pandemic, and it's been really hard for me to like figure out how to get that back. So it comes and goes. And I totally understand the people where it's like not super easy either.
Yeah. No, I love the awareness of all of it too. Yeah. You're like the David Goggins mentality, just fucking suffer until.
That's what worked for me. It might not work for you.
Quinn, what do you think about this? You as someone who typically you run full speed short distances.
Yeah, I don't do it like that, but I'm not saying it's bad. Like for me, I go out and like on Tuesday I did 10 by 10 with a 30-second rest, which is not hard mentally or on your lungs at all. It's 10 yards, full speed, 30-second rest 10 times. Like it's really easy, but it's supposed, I'm not an expert, but supposedly that's a good way to get faster, right? So I think for me, I've never really had an issue with like endurance and speed endurance, stuff like that. So I'm focused on just upping my top speed, upping my acceleration, upping my change of direction, as opposed to like getting in shape.
I think I could benefit from Nick's style because I do have a pretty. I don't have good speed endurance. I don't have good endurance, and I
could benefit from the mental side, I think, for sure.
Because I do think the more I play, especially UFA, like you got to be able to just like there's the top speed quickness, and then there's the ability to just like cover ground throughout the whole game.
Yeah,
and like who's going to cover more ground?
Well, a UFA game is nothing. Those games are so easy. Oh my
god, dude! I don't
know. Two-day tournament is the
wow.
Look, here's a different kind of.
I don't know.
We haven't done many hot takes. Here's my hot take. Look, I played in the AUDL.
What did you play? 3 games?
6 games.
Okay, all right, cool.
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Here's my hot take. They should bring back power pools
to nationals.
Yep.
I don't even really know like how it worked because I wasn't there.
I loved them when I was playing in them. It's been so. What is your reasoning?
The reasoning is that it makes depth super important, and it's like I think this idea of like, you have to play 8 games in a weekend. That's like super injury. Like it makes people injured. We want to reduce the games per weekend to reduce injuries. Like play more people and get in better shape to some degree. Like I think that there's a little bit of that, but also like I don't totally agree with that. This like just get in shape. Like I don't think that's a bad. I think that's a bad take actually. But I do think it like it makes you think about your strategy of subbing and your depth and like all your player. Like it does make you think about that more. Anyway, I just love power pools, so that's my hot take for Frisbee. Bring them back.
I don't even know, but I feel like soon, hopefully, the pools will just be almost good enough to where like, because how big were the power pools?
4 teams.
Because you're getting pretty close to like. I'm sure some of the pools now are like 3 teams that were really. I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely the floor has definitely.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
A lot. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean.
Like that first pool, that first day of 3 games. I mean, we had fucking 3 good teams in our pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody's good when you're as bad as you guys were.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Fuck.
All right. Last thing before we. No, you're right. Last thing before we.
I just shut down when you give me that kind of feedback. Yeah. So it's just like gonna be hard to do this pod with you now, you know?
Yeah.
So think about that, dude.
Yeah. You as an individual played well, Kin, so
but Quinn was second team.
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, Alex, I've never been on an All-2 World All Team.
That does make me feel better.
Really?
Never?
That's crazy.
Wow.
That is crazy.
That's really crazy.
Glue guy.
So for everybody, Nick and I were texting a lot prior to this, and the main thing we were texting about was, and we're not gonna solve this today. We're not, but maybe someday.
We're not gonna solve it today because it's already been solved.
I mean, from your perspective and my perspective, maybe. But which team? This is for Kins and Mikey, and then maybe we'll post a poll to our listeners, which will solve it once and for all. Our educated
recency
listeners.
bias is real, but
for sure. Which team is better, 2016 or 2024
Oh.
USA. Which team would win?
Men's USA.
Men's USA. If we
Yeah.
played each other, which team would win?
Quinn, I feel like I've already
At the
told
time.
you
At the
that.
time. At the time.
Obviously, I think 2024. Obviously, Nick thinks 2016.
Kins,
Oh.
do you want to go or Kins?
I don't know. What do you think?
It's 2016.
It's not.
There are
It's not.
a million reasons why, but and also just the pure size
Yeah,
as well
so
and athleticism.
So I told Nick
um,
this. I think 2016's O line is far more physically imposing, and the team in general is far more physically imposing than the 2024 team. But I don't think it matters.
You think
I
the
think
skill?
the overall skill and depth on 2024 is higher.
I think it's easy to forget how skilled some of those players
No,
were.
I
though.
have not forgotten. They've got like 5 of the best players
like
ever.
I will tell you that I think Mulks is the best handler today, but I think that Ashland is one of the best handlers of all time.
And Malks is 26 though, and you're looking at them in 2016 to 8 years ago.
I mean,
right?
by
Like,
then I thought he was. I mean, Jimmy's on my Mount Rushmore.
Like
for
the GOAT,
sure.
yeah, me
Beau
too.
is also on my Mount Rushmore. Like
God,
Beau,
it'd be such a fun game.
It would be sick.
So
and we haven't even
we
mentioned-
could still do it. It'd be like kind of like Mike Tyson, Jake Paul-esque, but it'd be kind of tough.
Oh my god, it would be so funny. But I'm curious. I think we should post this clip and do a poll, Mike. We should do it.
okay.
Yeah, the poll will be good.
2016.
And that's the end of the Nick. If the people decide 2024, that's the end of the conversation. I don't want to hear anything else.
Kins, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, who are you picking?
I don't know. I feel like I'm too biased because I'm just salty. So I don't think my opinion's super valuable here.
What does that mean?
No,
Does
I
that
think
mean you
it's-
go with
I think it's
the
valuable.
recent? I don't know what actually.
No, that means I would go with 2016.
How does your saltiness contribute to that?
Because I didn't make the team, and also I think it's different. I also think it's different. Like I probably have higher regards for the 2016 people because I don't play against them. So whereas like I don't view a lot of the guys on the 2024 as the same way that I would like I think of like Kurt and Jimmy in like a way different light because I didn't play against them. Like a lot of the guys on 2024, I've played against them, and you just they're not as big in your head, you know.
Can you guys give us some of the highlights of your conversation?
We were just. I don't know if there's highlights. We were just basically.
I don't know if I'd call it much of a conversation.
Yeah, it's like, well, we have this guy, and then when I was like, well, we have this guy.
Yeah, this guy's shutting down.
Yeah,
this
that's
guy,
all
dude.
it was. It was just like it was little school children throwing stuff at each other, and it was really fun.
Yeah, it's tough.
Like 10 hours would go by, and I'd get a text from Nick. He's like, well, what about Ashland? And I'm like laying in bed. It's like 10 p.m. He's like, well, what about Ashland? It was so funny.
I think
guess
that I talked to a bunch of people about this, like a lot of the super important Frisbee people who have really good opinions, and we sort of came down on in one game 2016 wins. In a 7-game series, 2016 wins 4-0. So you can take that way you will.
I thought you were going to say that. I thought you were going to say one game 2016 wins, but in a game series 2024 wins.
No, that is good.
That's
That is
hilarious.
really good.
All right. Well,
Yeah. I mean, 2016. That's my pick.
that's fine. That's fine.
Sorry, Quinn.
We'll see if you come back to Bravo as a coach next year.
Yeah, we will see about that. Honestly.
All right, so I don't know how much time y'all have, but I have another question.
Yeah. So
Sure.
What
For all the
Fris-
future pod practice guests, just see Nick, okay, as a great example of what a guest can be like.
Honestly, I feel like Nick's been you've been like a good therapy session for me. I feel like just feel.
Oh, nice,
good.
Mikey.
Well, this
Like
started by
love.
me asking Quinn for your contact information to talk to you, just like say hi, not be on the pod. But
And look at
so
us
we
now.
can definitely do that in the
Okay,
future.
yeah,
if
please
you
please
want.
do say hi.
Yeah. So my question is, what Frisbee opinion do you think you have that most of your teammates would disagree with? And it can be anything from
That's so
strategy
easy.
to whatever.
Well, mine is easy, and it's just about the amount of banter that can go on during a given point or not point or game, and whether what an acceptable amount is.
I think I have two. And they're different. I think most Frisbee players don't work hard enough. And I don't know if that's like something people agree with or not. And like a less divisive one is I think we should huck more.
Big Raffy Hayes fan.
Oh yeah, I love. Yeah.
Chicks
Yeah.
take the long ball. That's what.
Yes, dude.
That's what they used to say
And that's what they used to say.
on chain specifically.
I'm trying to think if I have any. Mine may not be. Mine is. Well, how did you phrase the question again, Nick?
What Frisbee opinion do you have that you think most of your the most of your teammates would disagree with?
I think it may be that something around spirit of the game not being. I don't think I value it as highly as other people, but I don't really know how to
Interesting.
phrase it because I do value like sportsmanship, but I don't think it's the same thing.
What do you think the differences are?
I do believe in respecting your opponent, I guess. I don't know if I can define it. I think I'm just saying that people have told me that they're different things.
Yeah. I can't define it, but it makes sense in my head.
Okay, well, as long as we can't
As long
define
as
it,
we
but in
understand.
our heads, we all
Yeah,
feel like we're on the
that's
same
just like
page.
spirit of the game, right?
Yeah, yeah. Until one of our non-agreements points comes out, and then we can all argue about it because we don't have a definition about what they are.
All right, should we do these? We got a couple fan questions.
Well, I want to know,
Oh.
Nick, does Nick have one?
Yeah, I definitely have one. It's become a little bit of a meme at this point now, and all my if any of the people that I say this to regularly are listening, they're gonna roll their eyes super hard. But mine is that throwing makes you worse at Frisbee.
Wow. All right. 2024 is beating 2016. Like,
I mean, I see the avenue that you're going with. for
Yeah, my
sure.
reasoning is that spending so much time, especially stationary throwing, where you're just like standing and pivoting and throwing.
Man, we can
And
talk
spending
about
so much
this.
time on like edge control, blah 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 blah, especially for new players or players who aren't like at the height,
It's control, blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah.
would get
Keep
would
going.
get would get more return. Like they would get better faster if they worked on defensive footwork, spacing, fitness, just like general that kind of like this amount of time you spend throwing. If you spent it doing other things, you would get better faster.
Mhm.
I definitely think it depends on the person, but
But yeah,
you should come play for Bravo, Nick, because you would love playing for TK. He's all about defensive footwork.
you got
Yeah,
one,
this
you got
is
one
our
more season in those
obligatory-
legs or what?
This is our obligatory recruiting part of the pod, where whichever guest we
Welcome
have
to.
on.
no, I'm,
Welcome to the Can We Get Our Guests to Play for Bravo segment.
you guys don't want to recruit me to play for Bravo.
Okay.
My reasoning is that you want to recruit young players who are motivated and want to come in. I think recruiting older players to like fly in and play out of region is bad in the long term.
I got a spare room. I'm not telling you to fly in. I'm telling you.
I think someone like,
and
I think that
culture.
there's always there's always going to be there's always going to be exceptions to that. Like I think Matt going to play for Rhino, totally fine, right? He and Dylan are super connected. Like I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't think that you should like go out of your way to get a 33, 34-year-old who's arguably past his prime to like come and play.
All right, Grant, we'll see you never, bud.
And I'm moving next year, so I'm planning to just show up to open tryouts for the team in the city that I'm moving to and see if they want to take me on the team. I'm not doing any recruiting.
Nick Baum.
I'm not doing anything like that.
What? Where are you moving? Are you not going to say?
Yeah.
Is it like a secret?
I am moving to Portland, Oregon.
Oh, that is kind of a bomb.
Darkstar.
That is kind of a bomb.
Darkstar's getting a new
hire. Yeah, but I
watch out for Darkstar.
I've been in grad school the last 2 years, and I really missed playing, and I'm gonna try to get back to the point. Like World's Tryouts showed me that like I can still hang. I agree that I don't think I should have made the team based on that tryout, but I also didn't embarrass myself. And so I'm planning to try out, just like show up open tryouts and see what happens.
Fuck yeah. I was going to ask you what you like, were there any differences you noticed between the two, tryout processes, like which that you thought of?
Not really. I mean, it was so long ago. It was 8 years ago. Seemed very similar. I think it was like a little bit harder just because I hadn't played in a year.
Yeah.
But everything else was very similar, like structure and
it was ran similarly.
Difficulty, like all of that. I would say is very similar. World Games Tryouts is way harder. Yeah.
Because of the setting, or even more exclusive?
Yeah, there's 75 people at Tryouts, I think, at World.
Yeah.
There's one, so the stakes are like, it feels higher. You can always be like, well, I don't know what happened at the other tryout, so it's hard to know. Like you can come like mentally, it's a little bit harder. At least it was for me. I did come out of tryouts, World Games tryouts, like pretty confident that I was going to make the 10. That was easily the prime of my career life, whatever. But you're also like trying to figure out mix. So if you've never played mix before, don't have a lot of experience with mix, that can be challenging. Yeah, it's just a fucking grind. I got super lucky because day one, like first thing that I did, we did 2-on-2 mixed gender. So you're paired with a woman or a woman matching player,
wow.
And you play 2-on-2 in an end zone.
That's
and
sick.
That can be really challenging depending on who you get, their personality. Like it can just be hard. And I got somebody that you maybe have heard of. Her name's Surge, and we scored every point. Like we never got scored on and broke every time. Jesus. And it was unbelievably easy. Like we just instantly connected, and so that like any nerves, any whatever, like my comfort level just like immediately was
sense of release.
Yeah, exactly.
She was on the 2016 team as well. Was she
17 World Games?
Sorry, yeah.
Yep.
Who was faster at that point? You or Beau?
In what distance?
Oh, that's a good question. Can we do a few? Like
yeah, you can ask
20, 40, and 70?
Me for all of them.
Did you ever match up in when Beau was a little bit younger? Like how would you compare your athleticism? in your primes?
Beau is more athletic and can jump higher. I think that my tank was bigger. Like when I was at my prime, my strategy was to just run a lot. And if you tried to keep up with like my top speed for that long, you were just never going to be able to do it for a whole game. And so Beau was like at that time in 2017, I think I was faster in one moment, but I think at Beau's prime, in my prime, Beau is faster in one. And I think in 2017, if we ran a 400, Beau would win, and probably
400.
maybe a 200 too. Yeah, because Beau ran a 400 I think for the University of Colorado. I think he was a D1 400 runner to start and quit track eventually. But you can go find videos of him running track.
We'll pull him up. Apparently, Rabbit has also all the old Mama Bird footage archived on little mini discs.
Wow.
That I'm gonna get some Mama Bird intern to digitize for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we do a couple of quick ones?
Yeah.
Yes. Can I actually, before we go, I have one more question because I feel like I like using the pod as like a time to talk about the deeper stuff, and because we maybe don't do it. And so on a more serious note, Nick, I didn't know that in 2014 your teammates died in a car crash. And if you're comfortable, could you just talk about like the impact that had on you and kind of just like, how it affected your life? Because I just feel like sounds like a very powerful thing.
Yeah. So I guess the story for those who don't know is that this year after I graduated from college in 2014, 3 of the teammates that I played with when I was in college were driving to the airport to go to Stanford and slid on the ice in Minnesota and got into a head-on collision with the semi truck coming the other way. And it really, I think at the time, the outpouring of support that we received from the ultimate community was pretty incredible. I'll never forget the messages that I got from Sub-Zero teammates who were Hodags, talking to me about how important the rivalry was and how whatever, I don't want to say bad blood because I don't think that was the case, but whatever contention there was never got in the way of respect in this way. So that in the moment, all of that was really powerful for me, and as well as a just broader ultimate community that you don't necessarily super understand, I think, in college, or that I didn't at least. I think, and this, you can agree or disagree, but the Carleton ultimate community is pretty unique as well. Every year we get 70 to 150 alumni who come back for alumni weekends. It's this whole big thing. And so the support that we received from alumni was, and at the time, I was an alum. So that was really, really powerful as well. It totally changed so the 3 players who died, weren't ultimate players. They all played other sports and were recruited for other sports and came to Carleton and found ultimate at Carleton. And all 3 of them talked pretty extensively about what they didn't like about the other sports, why they left, and how they felt like ultimate and the Carleton ultimate team filled whatever the gaps that they were looking for was. And so that changed a lot of how I viewed Spirit of the Game, and how I approached what ultimate meant to me, personally. So that's always been something that's at the forefront of my mind, from that experience. I don't know. I feel like I'm happy to talk about it. I'm certainly not. Sometimes it's hard for me to organize my thoughts. So I'm not. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions or talk more about there are articles written about it as well. So you can go and read the history. There's also I think there's a post from the Hodags about it too. That's interesting. That gets to what I was talking about from that alumni connection with some of them. So,
and just what are you saying, Mikey?
Oh, I was gonna say I think it was a factor in Grant's journey to Thailand and becoming a monk for 6 months.
Yeah. And maybe I'll give you a story that I always think about because it ties into a little bit of our like reputation conversation as well. So when I was coaching in maybe it was 2014 or 2015. I can't remember the exact year, but the team was at nationals, and it was when they had made the commemorative jerseys, right? So there are white jerseys out there with 3 cut logos and the team players' numbers on them. And we were going to be streamed, and we were playing against Oregon. And the team really wanted to wear the whites on the stream. And Dylan Freechild, who reputationally very fiery, very whatever. I knew Dylan from 2010 Junior Worlds. He and I are pals. Like, I would say good friends now, etc. But at the time, he was a player on the team, and he flipped with our captains. They won the flip. They chose white. So we were going to wear darks, and our players were really bummed that they didn't get a chance to wear these jerseys on stream. And I just sort of like, I heard this, and I was just like, I'm just going to go talk to Dylan about this. So I go up to Dylan, and I'm like, hey, I know you guys got the flip. Like, our player, we have these commemorative whites. They were really hoping to wear them. And like, before I finished, I didn't even have to ask. He just immediately, Ego, we're going dark. Like, change your jerseys. Like, wasn't a question. I didn't even have to ask, if I remember correctly. Just like immediately he changed and did that for the team. And so I think that that's like a great example of this like reputational thing where like he's got this thing where he's like spiking in the face of the Canadian players, blah, blah, blah. But like, you don't get to see this other side. And that's the kind of support we got from the ultimate community.
That's a really good story.
Yeah, that is.
Gosh, where do we go from here? That's so powerful.
No, yeah. Well, we can go to the more fun ones, but I don't know. It came up, and I wanted to ask about it. So thank you for talking about it.
Yeah. I appreciate it. And a good transition fun question is from Pavel, and Pavel asks, "Does cut rule?"
Yes.
Thanks for that, Pavel. Jesus, man. I
Pavel putting his footprint everywhere.
Yacht sent me a message like 20 minutes ago.
Are we live? How do these people know? Like, what's?
We posted on Instagram.
Yeah.
And Yacht sent me a message about it. It's not a question, but he said, my first summer on sub, we played together, and I guarded him almost every point I played at practice. Never once did I sky him or catch a deep ball on him. That's all he said. He didn't have a question, but thought it was worth mentioning. It was like literally like 20 minutes ago.
Saul Yannick asked, he wants to ask about coaching Joe and Henry and just the 2017 cut team in general.
Coaching Joe and Henry.
I guess because he's played with both of them, right?
Yeah, I don't super know how to answer that question specifically. I mean, they're both like pretty big personalities. Henry, Fisher. Yeah, I think Henry's a great example of somebody who like really plays their role super well. He does a great job of that, and did then too. Joe's a big personality and can rub people the wrong way a lot of ways. You all know Joe. He's definitely speaks his mind. I love Joe. Super sad to see him go down this year. A real big bummer. Bummer for him, bummer for everyone. I think he's a great ambassador of the sport. Coaching in 2017 was super fun. I think I was still at that time like figuring out what coaching meant to me and like how I fit in with the team. And there were a lot of really big personalities on that team. So it was hard to like kind of come in and fit. And I think a lot of the big personalities, Saul included, were like really into the X's and O's, and they kind of expected the coach to be really into the X's and O's, and I wasn't. And so I think that they like that kind of rubbed them the wrong way sometimes, where I'd be like, they'd come in and like want to talk about like what X and O's they should change or whatever, and I'm like, y'all are just getting beat on the open side because your defensive footwork is bad. Like, I don't know. There's no X's and O's you can do to stop that, right? Like, that was the way that I thought about things, and still do in a lot of ways. But again, I think there's a balance, and I obviously think X's and O's are important, but
play better.
I mean, really, it's practice better, but
yeah, that's cool.
Sure. 2017.
How else to answer that question?
That was Quinn. That was your freshman year, is that right?
It was, yeah.
And we played Carleton in pool play. I think
we didn't.
Right?
We didn't make bracket. We beat UNC, but we lost to Carleton,
to Auburn,
and Auburn. We beat Oregon State and lost to Oregon State and UNC, and lost to Carleton and Auburn, and missed the bracket.
I think if I remember correctly, we were maybe up 1 or 2, and then you threw zone. And
yeah, we took half.
Illegal.
I don't know if we did take half.
I thought we did. I don't know.
Oh, here's maybe another hot take. Teaching and almost exclusively using zone in youth ultimate is bad for ultimate overall.
Yes,
I agree. That actually came up. So Rabbit, who's a Walker teammate of mine, and also a Mama alum, well-known videographer. He ran the high school scene here in Colorado for a long time, and that has been a point of contention. There's like one team who only runs zone. But it was the reason why it was complicated is because they were kind of like an underrepresented school, and they didn't have any chance of keeping up with other kids athletically.
Oh, so they're cheating, dude. That's so unspirited of them to run zone. Like, that's so annoying. No, see, this shit annoys me too, because this is where we're gonna get to with like the whole spirit thing. Like, next thing you know, fucking running zone is gonna be against spirit of the game. Like, it's fucking like, so you can't fucking beat the zone. Figure it out, or
they're
run
kids.
it yourselves.
Yeah, so it was this whole.
They're
thing
kids. They have to play person. How could you let them play zone? It's ruining the game. No, that's so dumb. I hate that. I hate that so much.
That's not what I said. I said it's bad for ultimate long term.
Bad for ultimate long term is like a nicer way of saying what I said, like a less sarcastic way. But I don't.
No,
I
they're
still don't.
Inherently different.
No, that's such. It's bad for ultimate long term is such a catastrophic take though. Like it's gonna like ruin the sport that high school kids are playing zone.
He did tell us it was gonna be a hot take, so
I don't think.
I'm hot.
I don't think it was that hot.
I think it's fine to play zone. I think the teams that run only zone is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe unless it's like effective. Like, why fucking not run only zone?
Yeah. Yeah,
because I mean, I think you could make the same. Like we've heard the case about Brown fucking with their, they do their dominator stuff, and maybe a lot of their guys don't get touches, but they also win. So I don't fucking know. Like maybe it's just that the teams are winning, and we're kind of annoyed that they're doing something different that's successful.
Yeah. And I would say that the players who are a part of the dominator are better. The players who aren't running the dominator are going to get cut from club teams because they haven't had the experience, and that's going to be bad for them long term. And it means that in the short term, that team wins.
Yeah.
It means in the long term,
but if those players, I don't know if those players had gone to CU and played a more holistic offense, that they would have not gotten cut from the same club teams.
Yeah,
I don't know if those are the
true.
type of people that were making your area's top club team to begin with. And maybe we're just putting them in a better role for them.
Well, I see what you're saying, Kins. Maybe to sort of rephrase the thought, I don't think it's the best way to develop players holistically to run them run exclusively zone.
But I don't think. But then it's the best way to exclusively run person because a lot of these teams aren't running person
No,
and
that's
like you know what I mean.
That's not. I think just going all eggs in one basket is maybe not the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I guess.
Okay, last question.
We're always going to agree on that. We can always agree on
self triad here. So,
Self Triad's a real one. He's a real fan of the pod.
Oh yeah.
We love Self Triad.
Who's the best shorter non big man? He qualifies that matched up against you. What was their strength? Anyone come to mind?
No, anybody who's under 6 foot is bad. So I'm just kidding.
I agree so much. Nick, how do you?
No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Let the man speak, Kins.
I will.
I mean, I would not consider Jack Hatchett a big dude. He's always good.
Yeah, he's like my height.
Yeah, I'm always surprised how not tall. I thought he was like 6'3".
No, he's like,
and he's not.
Me and him, I think he's like 5'11". Me and him are like 5'11".
Yeah, I think Christian Foster is one of the best. Like, plays bigger than his height. From my era of playing. Lucas Dahlman's also super good at covering people bigger than him.
How do you take advantage of a smaller person being on you?
Go deep.
Here's what Kins will go stand at the back of the stack and do this.
Just blow up our offense and scream, throw it, put it up! Like, just completely ruin our offense because he's got someone small on him.
I do agree that you should go deep, though.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that not enough people, if someone's backing you, like just run super hard deep, and then come under, and they will either.
It's the come under part that I think is
lacking. Yeah,
lacking.
They'll either stay deep and you'll have a free under, or they'll absorb the cushion and then try to follow you under, and then now they're not backing you, so you can go deep, again. And yeah, so you got to attack that cushion, which you say all the time, but really, fundamentals, and it just people forget.
Well, sweet.
All right. Oh, last question.
Whoa.
Favorite board game?
Oh yeah.
You can't pick just one.
Well, gun to your head, you have to.
Yeah, what are some of the most fun nights you've had playing a board game?
I think so. Lots of nostalgia. My family plays a lot of Sorry. So my sister and my mom and dad, the four of us, have like a classic. We'll just play Sorry until our eyes bleed kind of thing. There's a bunch. I really like Spirit Island, which is a cooperative board game that's super fun. Twilight Imperium is great. That's like a super big, long one. There's a great game called Cartographers that's really fun. You're like drawing Tetris on a map and then trying to line them up to get points. That one's super fun because you can play with an infinite number of people. So if you have a big group, you can just play with a ton of people. I'm looking at my shelf right now.
Yeah, find this one. And Kins, cue up a philosophy quote if you could.
I'm on it.
Maybe about humility or anger.
Yeah, Mage Knight's really fun. That's right here. Mage Knight.
Did you you played on the U24 men's team? Did you know
U24 is the only one I don't have.
I was gonna ask if you were coached by Bob Cryer, because he now annually goes to I think it's called the World Series of board games in Las Vegas, and competes in various different games, some of which surprisingly, like, you can enter a game, I guess, without even having played it before, and you kind of just learn the rules on the fly.
Wow.
Dave Wiseman has also gone to that, who you must have played against, right?
Yeah, Dave was at Wisconsin when I was at Carleton for a lot of time. Yeah.
All right, Kins, hit us. Take us out.
This one's just funny. I just stood out to me. I don't know why, and I like it. My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened.
Okay. By credited.
Yes, that's important. I don't know. I don't even want to say this dude's name because I want to say Mitchell, but it's almost certainly not Mitchell because it could be Michael, but like a weird version of it. Day Montaigne.
Okay, I think.
You know who I'm talking about?
No, I think I was Googling quotes earlier though, and I think that name came up.
Yeah, Mitchell.
Michelle.
Yeah.
It's like it's Michelle.
Michelle
de
Montaigne.
Yeah, it looks like Montague.
Montaigne.
It looks like Montague.
Except there's no
But
U.
it's not.
Simon.
But it's not. I just thought because Simon. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one.
All right,
Perfect.
Nick, thanks a ton for joining us.
Yeah,
that was a
appreciate
fun
you,
one.
Nick.
That
Yeah, it was. a
Thanks
fun
for
one.
having me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I'll see y'all next season on the field.
yeah.
Darkstar.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
We'll see
Darkstar.
Darkstar at Nationals next year.
All right, take care.
All right,
Peace out.
peace.
See ya.